talented chef reaches out with his index finger and dabs the soup on the tomahawk pork chop. The flavor of the pork is just right. The heat is just right. Aware of the flavor of the dish itself, it's enough to impress the judges. Roy quickly began to stop the girl from adding more sauce. When the girl doesn't listen, Roy reaches out to stop her, but he couldn't avoid it. He burned his palm on the fresh sauce, looking at the only sauce spilled all over the place. The girl was furious. This is the end of the line. You fucking wait for the elimination of it all. Just when the girl was confused, only to hear the beeping sound came. Competition announced the end. Then 3 judges, wandering over, looking at the plate on the table. Pork chops that looked unappetizing. The judges were not at all. Couldn't muster up any interest. They wanted to have a taste of the pork chop, but when the aroma of the pork chop completely filled their mouths, the 3 of them couldn't stop themselves. It's so good. The chief judge commented that the pork chop was fluffy and tasty. The seasoning was excellent. So you guys, you've qualified for the next round. When the judges announced the result, they were overjoyed, and while they were happy, Roy thanked the judge. Annie, unbeknownst to him, his outstanding performance had attracted the attention of the judges. In the evening, Annie was heading home from work, but as she passed the kitchen, she saw the staff were gathered around the stove, and was curious. So she went over to the kitchen and found out Roy was frying up the leftovers from the competition to make a late-night snack for everyone. When Roy saw Annie, the chief judge, walk into the back of the kitchen to see what was going on, he hurriedly asked Annie, "Would you like a bowl of this?" And when he got a response, Roy methodically started a pan of oil. He added the tenderloin and the side dishes, then add the seasonings to the top of the pan. Soon, a bowl of stir-fried pork with a unique flavor is ready. Annie took a look. She took a piece of meat and tasted it, but she only chewed it twice. Its unique flavor instantly brought back memories of a past 15 years ago. Poor kid puts a $100,000 top-quality blackface on a wooden chopping board. Then he stabbed and slashed the belly with a knife. In order to remove the fishy flavor of the fish and make it taste more delicious, Roy put a layer of ginger on the plate and sprinkled the top with green onions and chile to add flavor. Then he poured the heirloom sauce over the sea bass and put it in a cage drawer. Steamed for 6 minutes and 1 second. That's it. A secret steamed black sea bass. It's perfectly steamed. As a third-generation heir to the Red Phoenix restaurant, Roy has been influenced by his grandfather since he was a child. He wanted to be a top chef so as to promote the long history Chinese food culture. However, due to the long hours of work, Grandpa, who was very old, suddenly collapsed in his restaurant. On that day, Roy was taking care of his grandfather in the hospital. He swept his eyes. Suddenly he noticed that the TV was showing an advert for the King of Kitchen competition. He learned that the winner would not only get the title of King of Chef, and what's more, the winner will be entitled to $1 million in prize money. For the sake of his unconscious grandfather and the restaurant, which was struggling to make ends meet, Roy decided to enter the competition. After a quick cleanup, Roy left for Shanghai alone, but as soon as he stepped off the plane, he was craving for all kinds of food. When Roy remembers what he's doing, he rushed to the audition site. The staff told him the application period is now closed. Seeing that the prize money of $1 million was just a few steps away from him, Roy thought, I have to think of a plan. So he sneaked into the arena as a substitute for a player who had forfeited. With the order of the host, the audition for the King of Culinary Arts officially opened the curtain. The first round of the competition is a home-cooked dish. Frying a small egg ring, see Roy casually break the eggs in the bowl, and then whipped the egg mixture and poured the whole thing into the pan. The judge was about to come up to him. Roy tapped on the handle of the pan and tossed the egg onto the plate. The result is a golden omelette that's so creamy and delicious. Hey, you're a good boy. That's it. After a fierce competition, Roy, with his excellent cooking skills, Roy was able to overcome all the obstacles. In a few rounds, she eliminated 100 contestants easily, and finally entered the final 4 of the King of Culinary Arts competition. Talented chef from a poor family. He has not received any training since he was a child, but he was able to cook the best dishes at the King of Culinary Arts competition. Even the judge, who is a 3-star Michelin chef, couldn't hide his excitement after tasting the food. As the King of Culinary Arts competition becomes more and more intense, Roy, with his excellent cooking skills, has made it all the way through the competition. Roy has made it to the top 4 of the competition. Watching the rest of the competitors working feverishly, Roy was frozen in place. He refused to make a move. For a moment, childhood memories all came back to me. Thinking back to Grandpa's shumai made by his own hands, Roy immediately had an idea. Then he grabbed a handful of flour and sprinkled it on the board. He quickly mixed the egg into the flour and stirred, and then, with a knife in both hands, he chopped up the meat. Even Chef David was attracted by the sound of horses' hooves. Soon, the 4 contestants have finished their works one by one. After the judges have tasted the first 3 dishes, Annie wanders over to Roy. Look inside the cage. 5 big buns. And Annie's a little confused. They look lovely, but today's challenge is supposed to be to make a noodle dish. Yes, it is. Take a closer look. Annie picked up a bun and looked at it, and then she realized the crust was made of a thin, hair-thin noodle. Then Annie took a bite and savored it. It's delicious. After hearing Annie's comment, the audience applauded. Roy, on the other hand, with his unique insights into food, has successfully made it to the final round. He's the best choice to compete with the past champions of the kitchen. 2 days later, the biennial King of Chef competition officially kicked off, with the host announcing the start of the competition. Roy and the former king of the kitchen, David, selected the ingredients in a systematic manner. Afterwards, they quickly cut up all the ingredients with their knives. Facing the newbie Roy, David, who is an excellent cook, doesn't dare to let go. Steamed sea bass, braised prawns, braised pork in clay pot. Soon all the 15 dishes that David had prepared were ready, but Roy made a mediocre bowl of noodles. The judges were confused again. At this point, Roy explains, because this is the taste of my home. I didn't make it for the judges, I made it for him. And the next moment, Roy came right up to David with the noodles, and got down on one knee, and asked him to taste it. David was at a loss as to what to do, but then, Just in time. His healed grandfather arrived just in time. Taste this. This is what your son cooked for you. David learned that the competitor was his long-lost son. He couldn't help but shed a tear in the corner of his eye. It turns out that when David left without saying goodbye, Grandpa took Roy and moved the family to Singapore. When David became famous, he sent someone back to look for them, but they couldn't find them. After 15 years of separation, at this moment, the three of them had forgotten all about the cookery competition. They hugged each other tightly and cried. In the end, David decided to give up the competition. He gave up the title of King of Cooks to his son Roy. After the competition, father and son, under the leadership of their grandfather, will make the Red Phoenix restaurant bigger and stronger to create a new era of glory.